Hi everybody, this is Mark Schuyler. I'm here today to talk about SAT math terms. Terminology can cost you, or a lack of terminology can cost you a lot of points on the SAT math section. I'd estimate at least 30-40 points. So we're going to go over fewer than a dozen key terms. I'm going to start with the four primary operations on our Texas Instruments graphing calculator. I have a TI-84 here, and just a few fancy terms come off of the primary operations. So the fancy term for the result of addition is sum. The result of subtraction is difference. The result of multiplication is product. And finally, the result of division is quotient. They expect you to know those words. Most of my students know sum and product. I do find a fair number of students who could use a brush up on difference and quotient. We also need to know the word integer. Integer is probably the most important SAT term. It's used more often than the other terms, and unfortunately most of my students suffer from overconfidence. They think they know what integers are, and they don't know whether or not 0 is an integer. I've actually found there's some confusion on that point. So what does the SAT test you on? Whether or not you know that 0 is an integer. I know it stands for nothing, but it is a whole number. So integers are whole numbers. Obviously something like 2.5, 2.5 is not an integer. Negative 7 over 2 is not an integer. 7 halves, negative 7 halves. Nor is pi, nor is the square root of 2. But whole numbers, positive and negative, including 0, are integers. I also enjoy making the distinction between a digit and an integer. The SAT knows that many people don't know how to distinguish between those terms. So they will usually use the word digit in a somewhat confusing way. Let's be clear, there are not an infinite number of digits. When I ask my students how many digits there are, I frequently am told infinite. But there's an infinite number of numbers, there's an infinite number of integers, but there are only 10 digits, not 9. Sometimes I'm told 9. I think people, once again, are forgetting 0. 0 is one of our 10 digits. They are the set of single-digit numbers, 0 through 9. And we're able to make all numbers and all integers out of these 10 digits. So, what other term could possibly result in confusion on the SAT? Let's go over respectively. If I say that x and y are positive and negative respectively, I've told you which one is positive and which one is negative. Respectively means in the order given. Since I mentioned x before y and I mentioned positive before negative, I know which one is which. Another term is tangent. If the SAT should say two circles are tangent to each other, that means they're touching. P.S. Since the SAT doesn't test trigonometry, since the SAT does not test trig, not the SAT 1 reasoning. I know some of the SAT 2 subject tests test trig, but the SAT 1 math reasoning test doesn't touch trig. You don't have to worry about the tangent that comes from sine, cosine, tangent, SOHCAHTOA. You don't have to worry about that. Tangent simply means touching. Another word to watch out for is distinct. If they say that two digits are distinct, then they're telling you what? Think of a two-digit number made up of distinct digits. That would mean you have to use different digits. So as far as a memory device, tangent means touching, distinct means different. These have to be two different digits. What other term might give you trouble? Not too many. We are down to some more obvious terms, I think, for most of my students, like similar. Two similar triangles mean the same. They are the same in the size of their angles, the relative ratios of their sides. Congruent means same. So there we go. We've covered the primary operations, the result of performing primary operations, sum, difference, product, quotient. We've covered integer, and we now know that 0 is an integer. Digits, there are 10 of them, but bear in mind the number 10 is a 2-digit integer, and they're actually just the numbers, the digits, the 10 digits are 0 through 9. We've covered tangent, we've covered distinct, we've covered respectively. There is one last term you must know. I saved it for last. It's the most important one. Of. If the SAT in one of their word problems uses the word of, it means what operation? For example, what is 30% of 40% of 50%? Or what is 1/8 of 1/7 of 1/6? What operation? Multiplication. Many of my students say division. That would be a serious error. No doubt they'd have an answer choice ready for you, but it would be a wrong answer choice. Make sure when you see the word of, you perform multiplication. So that's it, our quick little mini lesson on SAT terminology. May it save you 30 or 40 crucial points, raising your 500 to a 600 or raising your score of a 600 up into the 700s. Hope to see you soon on another video lecture. Take care. This is Mark Schuyler.